In our past life, little son Summer died in the wealthy family. Meanwhile, the gloomy me was rejected by an ordinary family, and we both met our tragic ends. Given a second chance, we swapped lives. She stepped into that seemingly kind family in my place, while I took her spot in that ruthless, cutthroat mansion. This time, we're all going to live well. In my past life, I was Isla, and she was Summer. We were both unwanted children from the orphanage. Later, we were adopted together. Summer, true to her name, was as radiant as the season, a little sunbeam. She was adopted by a stern and seemingly cold couple, entering that gilded cage. In the end, she leaped from the high rise, and the sun fell from the sky. As for me, I'm gloomy, withdrawn, and not much of a talker. I was chosen by a middle-aged couple who seemed kind and amiable. They said they would cherish me as if I were their own daughter, yet in less than a year, I was returned. Their reason was that I was too gloomy, unresponsive, and emotionally distant, like a stone that never warms to the touch. After being sent back to the orphanage, I faced even worse isolation and bullying, ultimately meeting the same fate as Summer. In my final moments of fading consciousness, I wondered, if Summer and I had swapped places, would the outcome have been different? And then, it actually happened. I got a second chance. I was back at age 12, right at the turning point that changed everything. In the orphanage director's office, Summer clutched my hand nervously, her palm damp with sweat. Her sparkling eyes were filled with anxiety as she whispered to me, "Isla, I'm a bit scared. That couple looks so stern. Do you think their household has many rules?" I looked at her, feeling as if an invisible hand were squeezing my heart. In my past life, she asked me the same question. What did I say back then? I said, "Don't be afraid. They seem wealthy. You'll live comfortably once you go with them." Not like me, the family I went to seemed just ordinary. In the end, my ordinary family sent me back to hell with a love they called "for your own good," and her good days were bought at the cost of depression and her life. This time around, I held her hand in mine, feeling the warmth of her palm. The feeling of rebirth was so surreal, but her warmth reminded me that it's not too late to make things right. When Summer noticed my silence, she thought I was anxious too and tried to comfort me instead. "Don't be scared, Isla. Uncle Kevin and Aunt Mildred seem really kind. I'm sure you'll have a wonderful life with them." The Uncle Kevin and Aunt Mildred she was referring to were the same couple who had given me up in my past life. Kind, their kindness comes with strings attached. It demands repayment. When they realized I wasn't the obedient, well-behaved daughter they imagined, that kindness turned into the cruelest blade. As for the family Summer is about to join, Victor's cold, rigid household, it was the very one that drove her to her death in her past life. Victor's family needs a marriage pawn for an heir, or perhaps just a pretty doll to display their so-called charity. Summer's sunny disposition was nothing but an unwelcome disturbance in that household, destined to be ruthlessly extinguished. I was always just a stone, a stagnant pool of water. They wanted a quiet, invisible doll, then I was the perfect candidate. I don't need their love, I don't need their attention. All I need is a place to call home where I can survive, as long as I can live, as long as I can watch Summer live well. A thought began to grow wildly in my mind, breaking through the surface. Summer seemed to notice something was off with me. She tilted her head and looked at me with concern. "Isla, what's wrong?" Footsteps echoed in the hallway. It was the director and the two couples. They were coming to take someone away. Time was running out. I took a deep breath, looked into Summer's eyes, and said word by word, "Summer, let's switch places." Summer froze, her eyes wide with disbelief. Swap what? Swap families," I said softly, yet with unwavering resolve. "You go to Kevin's family, and I'll go to Victor's." Summer was completely baffled, shaking her head instinctively. No, Isla, that couple from Victor's family, they seemed so intimidating. I really don't feel comfortable with you going there. Kevin's family, his uncle and aunt are so wonderful. You should go to a family like that instead. She's still like this, always putting others first. My heart ached with tenderness, and I squeezed her hand even tighter. How ridiculous. "Summer, listen to me." I had to convince her in the shortest time possible. "Do you think I'm like a little son? Then what do you think? What kind of daughter do Uncle Kevin and Aunt Mildred want?" I gently guided her. "They seem so warm and full of laughter. What they want is a child who can laugh with them and make the family atmosphere more lively. That person is you, not me." Summer's lips parted slightly, as if contemplating my words. "And Victor's family, I continued, their household is so quiet, so solemn, what they probably want is just a similarly quiet child who won't cause them any trouble. Summer, you'd be miserable there. But me, I've never been much of a talker anyway. I'm the perfect fit. I couldn't tell her the truth about our past lives. It was too cruel, and she wouldn't have believed me anyway. I had to convince her with the most logical reasoning I could muster. But Summer hesitated. What if they bully you at Victor's family? Why would they bully me? I asked calmly in return. I scoffed inwardly. What's there to bully about an adopted daughter who never cries, never makes a fuss, never fights for anything? Someone they barely even notice exists. Summer, trust me. This is the best choice for both of us. The sound of footsteps had reached the door. Summer's face was etched with inner turmoil. I knew she was scared, worried sick about me. I steeled myself and played my trump card. Summer, have you forgotten I was once sent back? It was a lie I made up. But for those of us who grew up in orphanages, desperately longing for a family, being returned was the ultimate curse. Summer's face instantly paled. That family said I was too quiet, like a mute. So they didn't want me anymore. I lowered my eyes. A hint of carefully measured vulnerability tinged my voice. Kevin's family reminds me of them. I'm afraid of being sent back again. Summer, I don't want to be sent back again. But what about me? Summer was completely distraught. She knew better than anyone what the words, being sent back, meant to me. She looked at me, her eyes welling up with tears. The doorknob turned. The director walked in with two couples, from Victor's family. Victor and Serafina. He looked stern, she seemed aloof, both dressed in bespoke suits and an elegant gown, completely out of place in this modest office. From Kevin's family, Kevin and Mildred were all smiles, appearing warm and approachable. Are you kids ready? The director asked with a smile. 4 pairs of eyes fell upon us, too cold and distant, too warm and gentle. Summer looked up abruptly, her gaze shifting from Victor and his wife to Kevin and his. Before finally settling on my face, she took a deep breath, as if steeling herself for something. Before I could say a word, she darted forward, rushing over to Kevin and Mildred with a brilliantly radiant smile. Hello, Uncle and Auntie, my name is Summer. Mildred's eyes instantly lit up, and she delightedly took Summer's hand. Oh, so you're Summer, you're absolutely adorable, like a little ray of sunshine. Kevin also gave a satisfied smile. I silently stepped forward to stand before Victor and Serafina. I didn't smile or speak, merely offering a slight bow. Victor's brow furrowed almost imperceptibly, as if puzzled by the discrepancy in the adoption list names. Serafina's gaze lingered on my face for a second before shifting away. As though I were nothing more than an inanimate object, the dean was also taken aback, glancing at the documents in his hand. Could there be a mistake, Mr. and Mrs. Victor? You were supposed to choose Summer. Mr. and Mrs. Kevin, you picked Isla. The atmosphere instantly turned awkward. Mildred held on to Summer, looking at me with a hint of confusion. Meanwhile, Victor, a man known for his uncompromising authority in business, fixed his gaze on me for the first time. His eyes sharp and disapproving. I knew everything hinged on this moment. I had to make them accept this mistake. That's correct. I spoke up, my voice quiet but clear enough in the silent office. All eyes turned toward me, meeting Victor's scrutinizing gaze. I calmly said, Summer and I agreed on this. Was this all prearranged? Victor's tone dripped with sarcasm, as if he were listening to a joke. Is adoption some kind of child's play? Serafina beside him remained silent. But her beautiful eyes betrayed a hint of impatience. I could sense Summer's nervousness. She was clutching Mildred's sleeve, her palms undoubtedly sweating again. I couldn't let her be afraid. Mr. Victor, Mrs. Victor, I turned to them, bowing my head slightly and adopting a humble posture. I know this request is rather presumptuous, but Summer, she's lively and thrives in bustling environments. Uncle Kevin and Aunt Mildred's home atmosphere would suit her much better. Then I turned to Kevin's family and continued, as for me, I'm more reserved and not very talkative. I'm worried that if I go, I might disappoint your parents. She shook her head. That was a perfectly crafted response. It complimented Kevin's family while explaining the reason behind our exchange. It also subtly played the sympathy card, hinting at my own unlikable personality. Mildred has a soft heart. After hearing what I said and seeing Summer, who was beaming like sunshine beside me, her sympathy immediately shifted in my favor. Oh, well, she hesitated. looking awkwardly at the director and Victor's parents. I think the children's own wishes are quite important too, don't you agree? Kevin remained silent, but it was clear he also preferred the lively and cheerful summer. Now, all the pressure was on Victor's family. Victor looked furious. As someone with such a strong need for control, he absolutely hated having his plans disrupted, especially by two kids. He stared at me coldly, as if trying to see right through me. Reason, he said tersely, barely uttering the word. I know that excuse I just gave Kevin's family won't fool him. I took a deep breath, looked up, and met his eyes directly. Mr. Victor, I've read about you in the news. You're a big-time businessperson with limited time and little patience for complications, I said, speaking deliberately, but clearly. Summer is like a little sun. She needs a lot of attention and love to keep shining. Without it, she'd wither away quickly. That would be troublesome. Victor's eyes flickered slightly. As for me, I pointed at myself. I'm like a stone. I need no attention, no love, just a place to exist. I won't cry. I won't make a scene. I'll follow every rule in your household and won't cause you or your wife any trouble. My only goal is to grow up safely and become an adult. A dead silence fell over the office. The director and Kevin's parents were completely stunned. Probably having never heard a 12-year-old speak with such maturity. Summer's eyes were red and watery. She wanted to say something, but I stopped her with a look. Serafina, the woman who had always been like part of the background, looked at me directly for the first time, her eyes holding an indescribable, probing curiosity. Victor stared at me for a solid 30 seconds. I could feel the oppressive tension radiating from him, almost suffocating, but I couldn't back down. This is my only chance. Finally, he spoke, his voice devoid of emotion. What's your name, Isla? Good, he nodded, turning to the dean. We'll take her, process the paperwork now. With that, he didn't even glance my way again, as if he'd just made a trivial purchase rather than a life-altering decision. The boulder of anxiety that had been weighing on my heart finally settled. It worked. I didn't need to look at Summer to feel her sigh of relief. Followed by genuine happiness radiating from within, she took Mildred's hand and skipped away happily. Before leaving, she turned back and mouthed emphatically, "You've got this, Isla." I gave a slight nod. "Summer, may you find true happiness in this lifetime." And now, I'm about to step into my battlefield. Victor's family car is a black Bentley with a license plate full of 8s. The driver respectfully opened the car door, and I got in after Serafina. Victor sat in the passenger seat. From the moment we got in the car, not a single word was spoken. The car was eerily quiet, with only the faint hum of the air conditioning. Serafina sat beside me, exuding a pleasant, cool fragrance, but she herself was just like her perfume. She carried an air of aloofness that kept others at a distance, her gaze fixed out the window as if I weren't even there. Victor, meanwhile, was on a phone call, speaking in business jargon I couldn't understand, his tone decisive and commanding. I huddled in the corner, trying to make myself as inconspicuous as possible. This was everything Summer faced in her previous life: endless silence, bone-chilling indifference. No wonder she fell into depression. How could someone who craved warmth and sunshine survive being thrown into the Antarctic glaciers? But I can. I was born of the winter. After a long drive, the car finally entered a heavily guarded villa compound. The gates slowly opened, revealing a massive, castle-like mansion before my eyes. This is Victor's family. As the car came to a stop, a middle-aged man in a waistcoat with impeccably groomed hair approached. "Welcome back, sir, madam," he said respectfully while opening the car door. "Leo, this is Isla. She'll be living with us from now on," Victor said curtly before heading straight into the house. Serafina also stepped out of the car and spoke her first words to me after entering Victor's family. "Follow me." I followed silently behind them, stepping into this gilded cage. The house was astonishingly large, decorated in a cold-toned European style, with crystal chandeliers casting an icy glow. The polished marble floors reflected our figures, exuding an aura of extravagance, yet utter lifelessness. In every corner, a dozen servants stood in 2 neat rows, bowing in unison. "Good evening, sir and madam." This spectacle was even more dramatic than anything you'd see on television. Leo, the butler, handed me a pair of slippers and then produced a folder. "Miss Isla, these are the house rules sir and madam have prepared for you. There are 36 rules in total. You must memorize all of them within 3 days." I took the folder and opened it for a quick look. It was packed with lines upon lines of regulations, You must get up at 6:30 a.m. sharp. Breakfast is served promptly at 7:00 a.m., and the meal must be completed within 20 minutes. No noise or conversation is permitted during meals. All residents must be in bed by 9:30 p.m. Entering the master bedroom or study without permission is strictly prohibited. Do not touch any decorations in the house without permission. My eyes scanned the lines rapidly, yet I felt completely unfazed. To Summer, these rules felt like shackles, but to me, they were just instructions. Just follow them, it's that simple. Got it all? Leo asked. Got it. I closed the folder. Leo seemed surprised by my calmness, but he didn't press further. He just nodded and said, your room is at the end of the second floor. I'll show you the way. I followed him up the spiral staircase, the thick, plush carpet beneath my feet muffling every step. The second floor stretched out long and narrow, with my room tucked away at the very end, far from the master bedroom. The room was spacious, 10 times larger than my dorm at the orphanage, and came with its own private bathroom and walk-in closet. The decor was done in a pink princess theme, clearly tailored for an adopted daughter, but this shade of pink, set against the cold sterility of the house, felt bitterly ironic. Miss Isla, your luggage has been put away. Dinner will be served at 6:30. Please come downstairs on time. With that, Leo bowed and took his leave. The door closed, and the whole world fell silent. I walked up to the massive floor-to-ceiling window and gazed out at the meticulously manicured garden. It was beautiful, yet it felt like a lifeless specimen. Welcome to your cage, Isla, I said to myself. But it's all right. This time, I'm not a prisoner. I'm here to lie low. At 6:25 sharp, I showed up at the restaurant. The long dining table was already set with fine silverware. Victor and Serafina were already seated at the head of the table. My seat was placed at the far end of the long table, quite a distance from them. Dinner began promptly at 6:30, Western cuisine, steak. The servants served the dishes one by one, moving in complete silence. The only sound in the entire dining room was the faint clinking of cutlery against plates. I followed their example, cutting my steak into small bites and chewing slowly, not making a single sound. I ate quickly because the rules stated that mealtime should not exceed 20 minutes. By the time I finished, Victor and Serafina were still eating at a leisurely pace. I put down my knife and fork and sat quietly in place, waiting. Just then, an arrogant voice came from the stairwell. Oh, you actually brought one back. A teenager wearing a trendy t-shirt with gray-dyed hair was leaning lazily against the stair railing, looking at me with a scornful gaze. He is Nico, the son of Victor's family. In the previous life, he was also one of the catalysts for Summer's depression. A spoiled, rebellious demon. He's here. Nico ambled down the stairs and plopped into the empty seat beside me, stretching his long legs out. The servant immediately stepped forward to set the table for him. No thanks, I've lost my appetite. He waved his hand dismissively, but his eyes remained fixed on me, not even trying to hide his malice. Mom, Dad, you two work fast. You only talked about adoption yesterday, and today they're already here. How much did you pay for this one? Is it any good? Does it know how to wag its tail? His words were sharp and unpleasant. I noticed Serafina's brow furrow from the head of the table, though she remained silent. Victor didn't even bat an eye, acting as if he hadn't heard a thing. This indifference only encouraged Nico's provocative behavior. In the previous life, Summer was brought to tears by that very remark of his, already on edge in her new surroundings. She burst into tears the moment Nico humiliated her. Victor then coldly remarked, the Victor family has no use for crybabies. Serafina merely gave her a dismissive glance and said, Nico, cut it out. It was a hollow remark, utterly devoid of weight. That meal marked the beginning of Summer's nightmare. Now, it's my turn. I didn't cry, not even a flicker of emotion crossed my face. I just watched him quietly, like watching a clown putting on a tedious performance. My calm demeanor seems to really piss Nico off. He's probably used to everyone reacting to him, whether out of fear or to suck up. My indifference was like punching a pillow, all force, no impact. Hey, cat, got your tongue? He raised his voice and leaned forward, trying to intimidate me with his presence. I'm talking to you, cat, got your tongue? I finally reacted. I picked up a napkin, wiped my mouth, looked at him, and answered very seriously, hello, my name is Isla. I wasn't bought, I was legally adopted. I don't have a tail, so I can't wag it. My voice was flat and devoid of any emotional inflection. as if I were simply stating a fact. A young maid who was pouring water nearby couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. She immediately realized her impropriety, turned pale with fright, and quickly lowered her head. I'm so sorry, sir, madam, young master. I didn't mean to do it. Nico's face instantly darkened. He shot to his feet, pointing at the maid. You're fired. Get out of here right now. The maid's tears welled up instantly as she kept bowing and apologizing. I was wrong, young master. Please give me another chance. My family, get out. Nico's voice grew louder. The atmosphere in the entire restaurant froze over. Just then, Victor finally set down his knife and fork. He wiped his mouth with a napkin, then lifted his gaze to give Nico an icy stare. Sit down. His voice was quiet, yet carried an undeniable authority. Nico stiffened his neck as if about to protest, but faltered upon meeting Victor's gaze. He reluctantly sat back down, muttering under his breath, "TCH, how boring." Victor then turned to the maid who looked on the verge of collapsing from tears. "Leo, handle it according to the rules." "Yes, sir." The butler Leo stepped forward, whispered something to the maid, and then led her away. I knew that, handling it according to the rules, meant deducting this month's wages and then firing her. The rules in Victor's family are strict and unforgiving. The minor incident was quickly brushed aside. Victor and Serafina continued their meal as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Nico beside me was glaring at me with murderous eyes. I could feel his anger in his eyes. I was the one who caused all of this. If it weren't for my sharp-tongued reply, the maid wouldn't have laughed, and he wouldn't have been humiliated. I ignored him. I just sat there quietly, waiting for the people at the head of the table to finish their meal. A few minutes later, Victor and Serafina finished eating and got up to leave. From start to finish, they didn't so much as glance at Nico or me. The moment they left, Nico completely lost it. "Are you doing this on purpose?" he asked in a low, menacing voice. "On purpose for what?" I retorted. "To embarrass me." "I was just answering your question," I said, looking at him with innocent eyes. "You're the one who asked if I could wag my tail." "You." Nico was left speechless by my retort, his handsome face flushing bright red. He probably had never encountered someone as stubbornly unyielding as me before. If he scolded me, I listened. If he glared at me, I watched. I gave him none of the reaction he was hoping for, fuming with rage. He paced around the table twice before pointing at me. "Fine, you think you're so clever, Isla, right? I'll remember this. You just wait." With that, he kicked the chair with a loud bang and stormed upstairs angrily. I was left alone in the dining room. I watched his retreating figure disappear without a flicker of emotion. He's getting flustered. This is just the beginning, Nico. Every ounce of pain you inflicted on Summer in our past life, I'll return to you in my own way, piece by piece, of course. Not through violence. The best way to deal with a spoiled brat like this is to make all their tricks backfire, leaving them feeling like a complete fool. That evening, after my shower, I sat at my desk and started memorizing that thick code of conduct manual. Truth is, I'd already memorized it. After being reborn, my memory seems to have improved significantly. At 9:25, I turned off the desk lamp and got into bed right on time. The bed was soft, and the quilt was quite comfortable, yet I didn't feel sleepy at all. I took out the old phone issued by the orphanage, hidden under my pillow. This was my only personal possession. I turned it on. The signal was weak. I sent a text message to Summer. "Have you arrived? Is everything okay?" It took a long time for a reply to come through. "Yes, I'm here. Don't worry, Isla. Uncle Kevin and Aunt Mildred have been so kind to me. Their place isn't very big, but it's so warm and cozy." Aunt Mildred held my hand the whole time, asking what I'd like to eat and promising to buy me lots of pretty dresses. It feels like I'm dreaming. Every word just radiates happiness. I can just picture her beaming with joy right now. I smiled and replied, "That's good. Get some rest." "Yeah, you too, Isla. How are things with Victor's family? Are they treating you okay?" "They're fine. They keep to themselves. And so do I. It's all good." I told a lie. I didn't want her to worry. Putting down my phone, I gazed at the ornate crystal chandelier on the ceiling. The light was off, but moonlight streamed through the window, casting faint glimmers across its surface. That's great. Summer is really happy in her new home. As long as she's doing well, anything I have to put up with here doesn't matter. For the next few days, I strictly followed the rules to live by: up at 6:30, asleep by 9:30, eat without making a sound, walk without a footstep, bow my head to greet Victor and Serafina. Then vanish without a trace. I live like a ghost in this enormous house, my presence barely registering. Victor and Serafina seem quite pleased with my behavior, or perhaps they simply don't care at all. The best kind of decoration is one that doesn't cause any trouble. The only one who ever tries to give me trouble is Nico. He seems to have it out for me. On the first day, while I was downstairs having dinner, he locked my bedroom door from the outside. When I returned after the meal, I found the door wouldn't open. I didn't knock on the door, nor did I call for the servant. I simply went back downstairs to the living room in silence, picked up a book from the shelf, and sat quietly on the sofa reading. Late into the night, Nico probably wanted to see me panicking, so he sneaked downstairs, but he was completely stunned to find me sitting there calmly reading a book. "Why are you still here?" he blurted out. I looked up from my book and said calmly, "The door is locked. I can't get in." "Couldn't you have just called a locksmith?" he snapped in frustration. Rule 31. After 10 p.m., noise and movement in common areas are prohibited to avoid disturbing others' rest. I recited word for word. Nico looked as if he'd just swallowed a fly. He probably never expected that the very tactics he used against me would be deflected by his own parents' rules. With a dark scowl, he stormed upstairs, flung my door open, then slammed his own shut with a loud bang. The next day, he tried a different tactic. He slipped a slimy, realistic-looking fake toad into my backpack. In a past life, he used the same trick to scare Summer, making her shriek, throw her backpack, and burst into tears on the spot. While packing my school bag, I reached in and felt that soft, squishy thing. I took it out and glanced at it. The craftsmanship was surprisingly realistic. I didn't scream or throw it away. I found a transparent jar, put it inside, and placed it on my desk. When Nico came into my room, all smug and expecting to see me terrified, I pointed at the jar and asked him very seriously, "Where did you get this model? I want to buy a spider and a scorpion too, to complete the 5 Venom set. They'd look pretty cool on display." The look on Nico's face at that moment, I'll remember it for the rest of my life. Shock, bewilderment, disbelief, and finally, humiliated fury. He probably felt his intelligence had been insulted. He tried to intimidate a coward, only to find out the other guy was a complete psycho. After that, he laid low for a couple of days. I bet he's cooking up something big. I'll be waiting. This cat and mouse game is actually quite amusing. At least it's easier than dealing with those two cold-hearted adults, Victor and Serafina. Nico's big move came sooner than expected, but not at all in the way I had imagined. It was Saturday, so I didn't have to go to my new school and just stayed in my room reading. Nico seemed to have some event at school and left early in the morning. Victor went to the office as usual, leaving only Serafina, me, and a group of silent servants at home. At lunchtime, Serafina did something out of the ordinary. She skipped the dining room and had the servants bring her meal to the art studio. I quickly finished my portion alone at the long dining table. After the meal, I headed upstairs and passed by the art studio at the end of the second-floor hallway. The door wasn't fully closed, leaving a slight gap. Some inexplicable impulse made me stop in my tracks. In my past life, Summer told me that Auntie's studio was off-limits. No one was allowed inside. She herself had never set foot in it either. She mentioned that Auntie used to be a painter, but after marrying Mr. Victor, she never picked up a brush again. The studio remained locked up, gathering dust over the years. But now, the door was open. I hesitated for a moment, but curiosity got the better of me, and I peeked through the crack in the door. The studio was spacious and well-lit. It was filled with easels and all sorts of paints, but a thin layer of dust covered many of the items, clearly untouched for a long time. Serafina sat before a massive easel. She wasn't painting, just sitting quietly, gazing at the blank canvas before her with hollow eyes, like a soulless statue. Sunlight streamed through the large floor-to-ceiling window, casting a golden glow around her, yet an overwhelming sense of sorrow and loneliness seemed to radiate from her entire being. At that moment, it suddenly struck me that she and I were somewhat alike. We were both trapped in this gilded cage. I was completely engrossed when she suddenly spoke, her voice so soft yet it hit my ears like a thunderclap. "Do you like it?" I was startled. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively took a step back. I'd been spotted. I stood at the doorway, unsure where to put my hands and feet, frantically trying to come up with an excuse for my snooping. Should I apologize, or pretend I was just passing by? The door creaked open from the inside. Serafina stood before me, her expression as aloof as ever, yet with a hint of curiosity in her eyes. "Come in," she said. I was a bit surprised, but I complied and stepped inside. This was my first time stepping into her studio. The air was thick with the mingled scent of turpentine and paint, pungent, yet oddly comforting. "Do you like painting?" she asked. I wasn't sure what kind of answer she was hoping for. If I say I like it, will she think I'm trying to butter her up? If I say I don't like it, will she think I have no taste? After some thought, I went with the safest response. "I don't know how to draw. I'm not asking if you can do it. I'm asking if you like it." Her voice carried a hint of impatience. I looked at a painting hanging on the wall, a deep blue starry sky, exquisitely rendered, yet somehow feeling like it was missing something. "I don't know," I answered honestly, "but looking at the painting makes me feel at peace." Serafina followed my gaze toward the starry painting. She remained silent for so long that I thought she wouldn't speak again. Then, she said softly, "I've been working on this painting for 10 years. And it's still not finished." 10 years, why? I couldn't help but ask. "Because I can't find the brightest star anymore," she whispered, as if speaking to herself. I looked at her and suddenly understood. It wasn't that she couldn't find it, she had lost it. When she married into Victor's family and became Mrs. Victor, she lost the radiant self she once was. We fell into silence again. After a moment, she suddenly pointed to an easel covered with a white cloth in the corner and said, "That one, it's yours." Following her gesture, I saw a small easel with a brand new set of paints and brushes placed beside it. I was at a loss for words. "I don't know how to use them." "Then learn," she said flatly. "It's better than staying in your room reading all day like a little old lady." With that, she dismissed me. "Get out, I want to be alone." I carried the easel and art supplies, which felt quite heavy to me, and left the studio. The moment I closed the door, I glanced back one last time. She returned to the blank canvas, once again becoming that sorrowful statue. Back in the room, I set up the easel and laid out the paints and brushes one by one. Staring at the empty canvas before me, my mind went completely blank. Why did Serafina suddenly show me kindness? Just because I said, "It feels so peaceful inside"? Or was it because I looked too gloomy, and she couldn't bear to see me that way? I just can't figure it out. The adult world is way too complicated. I just stopped overthinking it, picked up the brush, dipped it in some black paint, and started smearing it wildly across the canvas. I'm really not much of a painter, but I love this feeling. I let all those pent-up, gloomy emotions in my heart spill out onto the canvas. As I kept painting, I gradually lost myself in the moment. By the time I came to my senses, the entire canvas was completely covered in black. Just like my life. At that very moment, the door burst open with a loud bang. Nico was back. He walked in with a scowl on his face, paused for a moment when he saw the easel in front of me, then broke into a mocking grin. "Oh, our great artist is creating. What are you painting?" "Some kind of scribble." He came over, wanting to see my masterpiece. I instinctively tried to block it. That darkness is too oppressive, too real. I don't want anyone to see the shadows in my heart. But he was quicker than me, snatching the drawing board right out of my hands. When he saw that pure, untainted black, the mockery on his face instantly froze. "Is this all you drew?" He frowned, his expression full of disdain. "Just a solid black. Are you out of your mind?" I stayed silent and reached out to take the drawing board back, but he refused to hand it over, turning the board over and over while murmuring to himself, "That's odd, this black color feels different somehow." He extended his finger and touched the still wet paint. Then, his expression changed. "This isn't black," he exclaimed, as if he had just discovered a new continent. He held the drawing board up to the window, examining it carefully against the light. I looked up. Under the sunlight, what appeared to be pure black revealed subtle, almost imperceptible shades of deep purple and blue. To mix this deepest black, I blended several dark pigments together. "Did you add other colors to the black?" Nico turned to look at me. For the first time, there was no mockery in his eyes. Instead, a strange glimmer. "Why would you do that? Wouldn't it be easier to just use black directly?" Pure darkness consumes everything. Only when a faint glimmer of light exists within the darkness, even if it's a similarly deep, cool-toned light, can there be hope. Just like my life. My previous life was utter darkness. In this lifetime, summer brought a hidden splash of color to my darkness that no one else could see. Of course, I would never say these words to him. "I like it," that was all I said. Taking the sketch pad back from his hands, Nico didn't try to take it back. He just stood there, watching me with a complicated look in his eyes. Hey, he suddenly spoke up, Isla, you're really strange. With that, he turned and walked away without even a parting shot. I watched his receding figure, feeling utterly perplexed. Strange, what's strange about it? I looked down at that black painting and carefully set it aside to dry. Perhaps in the eyes of normal people like them, someone as cold as me was always meant to be an oddity. Still, being called weird by Nico is better than being called mute by him. Is this what progress feels like? All I know is this set of art supplies from Serafina might just become my only lifeline in this cage. My life at Victor's family feels like a stagnant pond, occasionally disturbed by Nico's presence like a stone thrown into it. It creates a few ripples, but soon returns to its usual calm. He seems to have lost that must get rid of me at all costs kind of interest in me, although he still throws a few sarcastic remarks when we meet. He no longer plays those childish little games. His biggest attack on me became barging into my room every day to critique whatever I was painting. What is that supposed to be? A pile of crap. Can't you paint something from the land of the living, like the sun, flowers, or cute little pets? Black again. Can't you use a different color? We have plenty of paints. It's not just black. I completely ignored him. I lost myself in my own world, pouring out those unspeakable emotions through my brushstrokes on my canvas. There were withered trees, birds with broken wings, desolate ruins, all rendered in somber, oppressive tones. Nico would always show up grumbling and leave just as grumpily, but the next day, he would still come. I've even grown somewhat accustomed to it. Serafina would occasionally stand by my doorway for a while, but she never came in. She never commented on my paintings, just quietly looked for a moment before leaving. A subtle understanding has developed between her and me. Like two wounded animals tending each other's scars, we guard one another's solitude through silence. As for Victor, I barely see him a few times a month. He's far too busy, and as his adopted daughter, I don't even warrant a shred of his spare attention. This kind of life isn't great for me, but it's not terrible either. At least I've managed to survive safely, until I got a call from Summer. It was a weekend. I was painting while Nico was playing games nearby, casually roasting my art skills. My old phone suddenly started vibrating. It was Summer's custom ringtone. I immediately put down my paintbrush and told Nico, could you step out for a moment? For once, Nico didn't argue with me. He just shot me a glance, snorted, and got up to leave. I closed the door and answered the phone. Hello, Summer. But instead of Summer's cheerful voice, what came through was a muffled, quiet sob. My heart instantly sank. Summer, what's wrong? What happened? Isla. Her voice was thick with tears. Trembling like a child abandoned by the whole world. Isla. She was crying too hard to speak. My heart was racing with anxiety, but I had to force myself to stay calm. Don't cry, Summer. Take your time. I'm listening, I said softly to comfort her. She cried for a long time before finally explaining what happened, her words broken by sobs. Aunt Mildred. She threw away my new yellow hoodie. She said the color was too flashy. She said girls should wear pink and white to look more gentle and quiet. She signed me up for ballet and piano lessons, but I don't like them at all. I wanted to learn street dance, but she said that's something only boys do. Totally inappropriate. I ranked 5th in the class on the exam. She praised me to my face, but then turned around and told Uncle Kevin, this kid is still too playful. If they put in a bit more effort, they'd definitely get first place. When I laughed a bit too loudly, Isla said I wasn't ladylike. She said I didn't act like a proper young lady when I was out having fun with my classmates. She bought me piles of princess dresses, dressing me up like a doll, but I hated every bit of it. I feel like I can't breathe anymore. She always says, I'm doing this for your own good, and I want you to become a better person, but the kind of good she wants isn't me at all. Today, she said my smile is too wild and lacks depth. I couldn't help but argue with her, saying I was born this way. I love to smile, and I can't change that. Then she started crying, saying I broke her heart, that she'd worked so hard for me, and I showed no gratitude at all. Summer sobbed uncontrollably. Isla, am I really that terrible? Did I truly let her down? But I'm just so heartbroken. I feel like I'm not even Summer anymore. Hearing her tearful words sent a chill through my entire body. In my past life, Kevin's family gave me up for adoption. claiming I was too gloomy and not lively enough. In this life, they treat Summer well because she's cheerful and outgoing, which matches their initial ideal. But when Summer's cheerfulness goes beyond what they can handle, and this little sun doesn't follow the path they planned for her, they start to worry and try to fix her. They don't love Summer. What they love is the perfected version of Summer they've molded. This is a form of control more terrifying than the indifference of Victor's family. Indifference at least comes with clear terms. I trade quietness and compliance for living space, a fair transaction. But the love from Kevin's family is like a gentle net that envelopes you, praising you, then it tightens bit by bit, until it suffocates you, finally molding you into the shape they desire. They aren't raising a daughter. They're crafting a piece to satisfy their vanity. In my past life, I was rejected for not being perfect enough. In this lifetime, Summer was forced to be sculpted for being too vibrant. None of us were at fault. The blame lies with their selfish and obsessive love. Summer, listen to me, I said, my voice trembling with anger, but I tried to keep it steady. You did nothing wrong, not a single thing. There's nothing wrong with loving to laugh, nothing wrong with liking yellow, and nothing wrong with wanting to learn street dance. You are who you are, you're the best Summer in the whole world, but Aunt Mildred, she's wrong, I said firmly. Harm done in the name of love hurts more than anything else. She isn't loving you, she's satisfying her own needs. You don't need to feel bad about her mistakes, nor do you need to change yourself to please her. I could hear her stifling sobs, trying to hold back her tears. Isla, what should I do then? She asked blankly. I don't want to upset her. But I can't keep going on like this. In my past life, when faced with such a situation, I chose to suppress myself and tried to conform. In the end, I failed. In this life, Summer must not repeat my mistakes. Summer, you can't confront her head-on. I thought for a moment and said to her, someone like Mildred responds better to a gentle approach than a forceful one. If you argue with her, she'll just think you're being rebellious and double down on controlling you. You need to learn to comply in public but oppose in private, I whispered. On the surface, go along with her. If she says ballet is good, go to class. But quietly tell the teacher you have tight ligaments so you can take it slower. If she says the piano is good, just play it, but stick to the pieces she likes. A little performance is all it takes to keep her happy. If she says yellow doesn't look good on you, don't wear it around her, but you can keep a set of clothes you like at school and change into them when you go out. Make her believe you're still under her control, that you're still her obedient, good daughter. That way, she'll let her guard down. Meanwhile, I shifted the tone. You need to keep your own space, sneak out to learn street dance, quietly make your own friends, and live the way you truly want to be. But, isn't that lying? Summer hesitated. Summer, when dealing with extraordinary people, you need extraordinary methods, I said earnestly. This isn't deception, it's self-preservation. Before you're strong enough to walk away, you must learn to shield your true self and guard that inner fire within you. Never let it go out. Do you hear me? Summer fell silent on the other end for a long time. Then, in a voice trembling with tears yet resolute, she said, I heard you, Isla. I know what to do. All right, remember. No matter what happens, you still have me. After hanging up, I collapsed weakly onto the carpet. My heart was filled with both lingering fear and anger. I thought sending Summer to that seemingly warm and kind family would bring her happiness. I was wrong. There are no perfect families in this world, only different forms of cages. Victor's family is an icy iron cage, while Kevin's family is a warm cotton one. But in essence, they're all cages. I can't let Summer face this alone. I have to do something, but what can I actually do? I'm just an insignificant adopted daughter in Victor's family, barely able to protect myself. What could I possibly offer to help her? A wave of helplessness washed over me, staring at the lifeless gray ruins on the drawing board. I felt such intense hatred for my own weakness for the first time. Just then, there was a knock at the door. It was Nico. Hey, are you done with your call? All that sniffling is driving me crazy. He shouted impatiently through the door, apparently tired of waiting. He just pushed the door open and walked in. The moment he walked in, he saw me sitting on the floor, my face deathly pale. He froze for a second, frowning. What's wrong with you? Did someone boil you alive? I looked up and met his gaze, staring at this man who was supposedly my brother, the true master of Victor's family. A thought flashed through my mind like lightning. Perhaps, maybe he could help me. Why are you staring at me like that? Nico took a step back, visibly uncomfortable under my gaze. Just so you know, I didn't bully you. You're the one who started crying. He thought I was crying. I did feel like crying, but not for myself. It was for Summer, but I couldn't cry. In Victor's family, tears are the most useless thing. I got up from the ground, walked over to him, and asked very seriously, Nico, I need to ask you a favor. It was the first time I had ever spoken to him in such a solemn tone. Nico was clearly taken aback, then burst into exaggerated laughter as if he had just heard the funniest joke in the world. You're asking me for help, Isla. Are you feeling all right? I'm doing you a favor by not causing you trouble, and you dare ask me for help. I know this request is sudden, I continued, ignoring his sarcasm, but you're the only one who can help me with this. My serious expression made Nico's laughter gradually fade away. He dropped his usual carefree demeanor, crossed his arms, and raised an eyebrow at me. Go on, tell me, if it's amusing enough to make me laugh at your expense, I might consider it. My friend, the girl who swapped families with me at the orphanage last time, Summer, she's not doing well now. I briefly explained to him what Summer had been through at Kevin's family. Of course, I left out the grudges from our past life and only mentioned Kevin's parents' controlling behavior and psychological pressure on Summer. As I spoke, I kept an eye on Nico's expression. At first he had a look of amusement, but as he listened, his brow furrowed. When I finished, he scoffed. I thought it was something serious. Isn't it just parents being a bit strict? What parent doesn't do this? I've heard, it's for your own good. Since I was a kid, my ears are calloused from it. It's not the same. I shook my head. Your parents just ignore you, but they're trying to turn her into someone else. Nico curled his lip dismissively. So what? What's it got to do with me? She's your friend, not mine. I need to know how she's doing at her new school. I stated my purpose bluntly. Kevin's family will definitely restrict her contact with the outside world. I need a way to check on her safety at any time. Your school and hers are really close to each other, right? Nico attends the city's top private high school, while Summer goes to the affiliated middle school. The two schools are right next to each other, and they often hold joint events. Nico is a big shot at school with tons of connections and plenty of resources. If he's willing to help, getting info on a middle school girl would be a piece of cake. Nico narrowed his eyes, finally catching on to what I was after. You want me to be your spy? He sneered. Isla, what makes you think I'd help you? What's in it for me? I have nothing to offer you, I admitted frankly. I'm just asking for your help. Consider it compensation for all the times you've messed with me before. Compensation? Nico bristled like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. So what if I messed with you? Didn't you always clap back at me? I haven't even settled the score with you yet, and now you expect me to be at your beck and call. Not a chance. His strong reaction was actually within my expectations. Expecting any kindness from him was never realistic to begin with. The room fell into an awkward stalemate. Nico stared at me, and I stared back, neither of us saying a word. After a moment, he probably realized it was pointless to deal with an ice block like me, and he scratched his head in frustration. All right, stop looking at me like that. You're making me out to be some kind of irredeemable villain. He waved his hand dismissively, looking annoyed. It's just asking for a piece of information. What's the big deal? My eyes lit up as I looked at him. He grew visibly uncomfortable under my gaze, turning away and retorting defensively. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not helping you. I just think that family is disgusting and wanted to see what other nonsense they'd pull. Just curious, just curious. As if to prove he was genuinely just curious, he added, once I get tired of it, I'm out of here. I knew right then. He'd agreed. What a hypocrite. His heart clearly softened with compassion, yet he insisted on speaking so harshly. Thank you, I said softly. It was the first time I had genuinely thanked him. No need to thank me. I told you I wasn't doing this for you. His ears flushed slightly red. He snapped in a gruff tone, then bolted out of my room as if fleeing for his life. Watching his retreating figure scurrying away, the corners of my mouth lifted in an involuntary smile. For the first time at Victor's family, this bully doesn't seem all that bad after all. With Nico as my inside source, I can finally keep tabs on Summer's every move. Though he'd never admit it, his efficiency is surprisingly impressive. The next day, he got Summer's class schedule and contact info through his junior high underlings. Hey, here's what you wanted, he said. slapping a piece of paper on my desk with his usual abrasive tone. That friend of yours, Summer, right? She's in class 3 of 8th grade, seems pretty popular, lots of people like her, but, he paused, frowning, I heard from my buddy that she's been acting a little strange lately. Strange? How so? My heart tightened with worry. Well, it's like she doesn't laugh as much as she used to. Sometimes she appears to be smiling, but it feels forced and insincere. What's more, her mother, that Mildred, drives to pick her up from school every single day. She just stands there at the school gate watching, almost like she's stalking her. If she talks to a classmate for more than a couple of minutes, her mother's expression immediately darkens. My heart sank. It seems my plan of feigning compliance while acting in opposition didn't go smoothly for Summer. She isn't like me, she's never been one for pretense. Forcing her to put on a happy face around someone she dislikes is worse than death to her. And, Nico continued, I heard her mom signed her up for every tutoring session and extracurricular class on weekends. Her schedule is packed from 8 a.m. Saturday to 9 p.m. Sunday. Not a single moment of free time. Ballet, piano, math Olympiad, English, TSK. Is this about making her a top scholar or driving her to an early grave? Nico's tone was dripping with sarcasm, but it sent chills down my spine. Mildred is pushing Summer to the absolute brink. She's trying to force-feed her methods to sand down all of Summer's unconventional edges. She's monopolizing all of Summer's free time so she has no chance to go astray. It's absolutely terrifying. Nico, I called out his name. What? Could you do me one more favor? Nico's face instantly fell. Isla, don't push your luck. I went out of my way to get that information for you. Could you take something to her for me? I pulled a small USB drive from the drawer. This has some street dance tutorial videos I found for her, and some mental wellness audio guides. I'm worried she won't be able to handle things on her own. Nico stared at the USB drive without a word, his brow furrowed in a deep frown. How are you going to get it to her? Her mom watches her like a hawk, he asked. That's where you come in, I said, looking at him. You're the big shot at the high school. Finding an excuse to go to the middle school should be easy, right? Like student council events, club recruitment, stuff like that. Nico fell silent. He was probably weighing the pros and cons. Doing me this favor offers him no benefit, only risks. If Kevin's family finds out and reports it to Victor, he's definitely going to get an earful. I thought he would refuse, but after a long silence, he finally reached out and took the USB drive. What a hassle, he muttered, stuffing it into his pocket with the same impatient look. Just this once. Next time something like this happens, you're on your own. With that, he fled in a fluster once again. I looked at my palm, where the lingering warmth of his touch seemed to remain. A small crack seemed to form in a hardened corner of my heart. On Monday, Nico actually went to the junior high division. He went to the middle school division for recruitment under the guise of being the hip-hop club president, of course. He wasn't actually the president, he just made up an excuse, right there on the sports field, in front of everyone. He slipped that USB drive along with a recruitment flyer to Summer, who was in the middle of her PE class. The whole thing went down so smoothly that nobody suspected a thing. That evening, I got a text from Summer. It was just 2 words, got it, followed by a sun emoji. My heart is finally a little more at ease. I know that as long as the spark still burns within her, as long as she hasn't given up, there's still hope for everything, and I must find a way, as soon as possible, to become stronger. Strong enough to truly rescue her from that gilded cage. My gaze fell upon Victor's business biography on the desk. Perhaps this is where I should begin. Since Nico started helping me, there's been a subtle shift in our dynamic. He no longer acts like a rooster ready to fight at any moment. Though his words still carry an edge, the hostility has noticeably diminished. He even proactively shares school gossip with me, though the focus is always on Summer. Hey, Ice Face. Your friend made quite a scene at school today. The moment he got home, he tossed his backpack on the couch and started shouting at me. I was sitting on the rug drawing when I looked up and asked, what happened? At the school arts festival, her class was performing a choral piece, and she was originally the lead singer. But right before going on stage, she suddenly told the teacher her throat felt uncomfortable and gave the lead role to another girl. She ended up just blending into the chorus, barely contributing. My heart stirred with emotion. Summer started to rebel in her own way. Mildred wanted her to be a shining, perfect daughter, in front of everyone, but she refused. she would rather give up her passion for singing than become a trophy for Mildred to show off. What happened next? I asked, and then, her mom's face turned green with rage. Nico said with glee, the art festival was open to the public, and many parents attended. Her mom was in the parents' seating area, all set to record with her phone, but then, ha ha ha, the look on her face was absolutely priceless, like she'd just swallowed a fly. I can picture the scene. Everything Mildred had meticulously planned was ruined by Summer in the most plausible way possible. She couldn't even lash out because Summer's excuse was not feeling well, such a considerate and reasonable justification. Well played, I said with genuine admiration. Right? Nico raised his eyebrows smugly, as if he deserved half the credit, but I have a feeling she's in for it when she gets home. You'd better give her a heads up. Yeah, I nodded, though a heaviness settled in my chest. Summer's defiance would inevitably lead to even tighter control and more ruthless suppression from Mildred. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and Summer is fighting it alone. I need to accelerate my plan. That night, instead of painting, I stepped into Victor's study for the first time. The rules explicitly forbid entering the study, but now, I have to break this rule. The study was empty, Victor hadn't returned yet. I walked up to the massive mahogany bookshelf, which was densely packed with books ranging from economics and philosophy to history and management. I found the business biography of Victor that I had read before. I pulled it out, along with a thick photo album sitting right next to it. I opened the album. Inside were photos of Serafina. Serafina in her younger days. She looks like a completely different person in the photo compared to now. Wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, she stood in a sunflower field with a drawing board on her back, smiling brighter than the sun. There was a sparkle in her eyes. In another photo, she was dressed in grimy overalls with paint smudges on her face, holding up a vibrant painting. She makes a playful face at the camera, full of energy and charm. In another shot, she stands on a street in a European town, her long hair tousled by the wind, her eyes radiating freedom and defiance. I flipped through the pages one by one. In every photo, Serafina looks vivid, lively, and brimming with vitality. She, too, was once a beacon of light. What led her to become who she is now? The last page of the album held a group photo, a young Serafina, standing beside a man equally youthful. That man isn't Victor, wearing a white t-shirt identical to Serafina's. He had his arm around her shoulder. Their heads were tilted together, both beaming with happiness. In the bottom right corner of the photo, there was a line of small text. My dearest Juan, may you forever be my sunshine. Lucian, Lucian. I feel like I've heard that name somewhere before. I closed the photo album, my heart racing uncontrollably. I think I've stumbled upon an incredible secret. Just then, footsteps echoed from the doorway, holding a glass of milk. She froze when she saw me in the study. Isla, what are you doing here? Her eyes fell on the photo album in my hands, and her face instantly turned pale. Who said you could touch my things? Her voice suddenly turned shrill. She rushed over and snatched the photo album, clutching it tightly to her chest as if protecting some priceless treasure. Her body trembled, her eyes filled with terror and rage. I'm sorry, I said, lowering my head. I didn't mean to. Get out. She pointed at the door, her voice trembling with emotion. Get the hell out. This was the first time she had ever been this furious with me. I didn't move. I looked at her and said softly, his name is Lucian, isn't it? Serafina froze, her eyes widening in disbelief as bloodshot veins instantly clouded her gaze. How did you know? Just a hunch. I glanced at the photo album in her arms, that brightest missing star in the decade-old galaxy painting in your studio. It's him, isn't it? Her lips trembled, words failing to form. The guarded anger in her eyes gradually melted into boundless sorrow. Tears began to fall from her beautiful eyes without warning. Clutching the photo album, she slowly sank to the ground and buried her face in her knees. A long-suppressed, animal-like wail of grief finally escaped her lips. I didn't go to comfort her. I knew what she needed wasn't comfort, but to let it all out. She cried out all the grievances, regrets, longing, and pain she had bottled up over the years. This gilded cage trapped her not just as Victor's wife, but also in a past she could never return to. I stood quietly by her side, waiting for her to finish crying. After crying for a long, long time, her sobs gradually subsided. She lifted her head, her eyes red and swollen, her makeup smeared, looking utterly disheveled. Yet in those eyes, as if washed clean, there was a glimmer of clarity. he was my college classmate, and also, my first love. In a hoarse voice, she began to tell her story, her words faltering and broken. She and Lucian were the most celebrated couple at the art academy, like a match made in heaven. They both loved painting and dreamed of opening a studio together, traveling the world, and capturing every landscape on canvas. They believed the future would be as beautiful as a painting. Until Serafina's family business faced a crisis, teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. To save the family, her father forced her to marry Victor, a rising tycoon in the business world at the time. It was a marriage of convenience through and through. Victor needs the prestige and connections of Serafina's family to solidify his standing in high society, and Serafina's family needs Victor's money. I fought against it. Serafina said with a bitter smile. I told Lucian, let's run away together. To a place where no one can find us, but he refused. I don't know how to respond. He said he couldn't be that selfish. He couldn't stand by and watch my family end up homeless. He said he loved me, so he wanted me to have a good life. He personally pushed me toward Victor with his own hands. On our wedding day, he gave me this photo album. Then he went abroad. I never saw him again after that. A few years ago, I heard he didn't make it in an avalanche. Serafina's voice was calm, as if she were telling someone else's story, but I could see her hands clutching the photo album, her knuckles turning white from the pressure. I hate him, she said. I hate that he let go back then, and I hate myself for not having the courage to see it through. After marrying Victor, I never picked up a paintbrush again. I feel like my world turned black and white the moment he left. I can't paint anything with color anymore. I thought this was just how my life would be, until you came along. She looked up and met my eyes. Those paintings you create, they're dark and heavy, almost suffocating, but I can see it. There's something else hidden within all that black. Your darkness isn't lifeless, it's struggling, it's screaming. In your painting, I see the person I used to be. I never expected her to say these things to me. Even more surprising, she's been quietly watching over me all along, and even understanding me. Isla, she looked at me, a hint of pleading in her eyes. Could you do me a favor? A few days ago, I was the one begging Nico. I was a bit surprised. Today, it's Serafina's turn to ask me. Go ahead, help me finish that starry sky painting, she said. I can't do it anymore, but I think you can. I don't know how to paint, I said honestly. Yes, you do, she said, looking at me intently. Paint with your heart. Just put what you feel onto the canvas. What should I draw? Draw a star, she said. The brightest one that can light up the entire night sky. I looked at her, and a bold idea suddenly came to mind. All right, I agreed, but I have one condition. Serafina was taken aback. I need your help, I said, enunciating each word. I need you to help me acquire 1% of Victor's family company shares from Victor. Serafina's eyes widened in shock. She probably never expected I'd make such an earth-shattering demand. 1% of the shares. Serafina's voice was filled with shock. Isla, do you realize what you're saying? GU Corporation is a top-tier business empire domestically, with a market value in the hundreds of billions. 1% of the shares translates to billions in assets. That's not a figure a 12-year-old would dare mention lightly, not even an adult. I know, I said calmly. I know it's difficult, but aside from this, I don't know what else could truly help me stand my ground. I need money, and I need power. It's not for me, it's for Summer. I need to be strong enough to pull her out of the mess that is Kevin's family. Only then can we ensure that our future won't be at the mercy of others. And the shares from Victor's family are the fastest and most direct way I can think of. Serafina looked at me with a complicated expression. She was shocked by my ambition, and equally stunned by my candor. Why would you do this? She asked. For money, for freedom, I replied. The freedom to live without being controlled by anyone, and to choose my own path in life. For my own sake, and for my friends, freedom. Serafina murmured the word, her gaze growing distant and unfocused. Isn't that exactly what she had lost? She remained silent for so long that I began to think she would refuse. I can't help you, she finally said, shaking her head with a hint of weariness and resignation. Victor, he won't agree. To him, the company is his life. He won't give his shares to anyone, not even me or Nico. I had already anticipated this. A control freak like Victor would never willingly share his empire with anyone. I'm not asking you to get it from me directly, I said. I just need you to help create an opportunity for me, an opportunity that will make him see my worth and willingly offer it to me." Serafina frowned. "What kind of opportunity? Has Mr. Victor been struggling with an overseas MA deal lately?" I pieced this together from scattered documents and business magazines in Victor's study. Gu Group is trying to acquire a long-established European tech company, but the negotiations have hit a stalemate. The target company has a very conservative corporate culture and is highly resistant to Gu Group's aggressive, barbarian approach. A look of surprise crossed Serafina's face. "How did you know?" "Just a hunch," I said without elaborating. "The founder of that company, isn't he an avid art collector, especially fond of oil paintings?" Serafina's eyes widened even more. It seemed she had caught on to what I was getting at. "I want to paint something," I said. "Something that will move him. Then, in your name, I'll give it to him as a gift." "That's too risky," Serafina objected immediately. "Isla, this isn't child's play. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar deal here. If it goes wrong, if it fails, it's Mr. Victor who loses, not me." I had nothing to begin with. I looked at her calmly. "But what if it works? How would he see me then? Wouldn't an adopted daughter who solved a major problem for him be worth a 1% stake as an investment?" "I'm gambling, betting on Victor's mercenary instincts as a businessman. In his eyes, everything is negotiable. Family bonds, marriage, nothing is exempt. If I could demonstrate enough value, he wouldn't hesitate to invest." Serafina was stunned by my words. She looked at me as if I were a monster, a 12-year-old body housing an unfathomable soul. "Let me think about it," she finally said with a wave of her hand, walking out of the study in a daze. I knew she was intrigued, because my plan wasn't just helping me, it was helping her too. If I succeed, she'll regain some leverage in front of Victor. She would no longer be just a pretty but useless trophy. This would also allow her to finally say her goodbyes to Lucian, using the art she loves most. She'll conquer what even Victor's money can't buy. It was a silent victory. Serafina didn't reach out to me over the next few days, but I knew she was up to something. I'd occasionally overhear her arguing with Victor in the room, though I couldn't make out the details. Words like art and merger deal would drift faintly to my ears. Nico also noticed the tense atmosphere at home. "Hey, Ice Face, what's up with my parents lately? They're fighting every day. Is it because of you?" He eyed me suspiciously. "No idea." I kept on with my drawing. "TCH. It's definitely got something to do with you." He pursed his lips but didn't press further, just tossed me a beautifully wrapped box of chocolates. "Here, your friend asked me to give this to you, said she made it herself." I opened the box to find a few misshapen pieces of chocolate inside. There was also a small note. "Isla, thank you for the USB drive. The street dance videos are awesome. The mental wellness audio clips are really helpful too. I've been listening to them every night before bed. This is my first attempt at making chocolates. They might not look perfect, but I hope you'll still enjoy them. I'll keep improving. We've got this." I picked up a piece of chocolate and put it in my mouth. It warmed my heart. "Summer, take care of yourself too. Wait for me." A few days later, the opportunity finally arrived. That night, Victor surprisingly didn't work overtime and came home early. My heart skipped a beat. He summoned me to his study, for the first time. He formally acknowledged me as someone worth having a conversation with. The study was filled with the heavy scent of expensive cigars, making it hard to breathe. Victor sat in his massive executive chair, fingers interlaced on the desk, his gaze as sharp as an eagle's, as if he could see right through me. Serafina told me everything. He cut straight to the chase. "You want to trade a painting for 1% of my company's shares." There was a hint of barely concealed mockery in his tone. "Not a trade," I corrected him. Proof that I'm worth it." "Ha, proof of value," he sneered. "Isla, you're the most extraordinary person I've ever met. Your ambition reaches higher than the sky. You flatter me. What makes you think a single painting of yours could win over that stubborn German old man?" He leaned forward, radiating intensity. "Do you have any idea how many top-tier negotiators I've sent, only to have them return empty-handed? Do you know how much money I've spent and how many connections I've leveraged for this case?" "I know," I nodded. "That's why you need to try a different approach. Why, some problems can't be solved with money or power, but perhaps art can." "Art?" he scoffed. "What's art even worth? Art itself isn't valuable," I said, "but it has the power to connect people. That gentleman refused you not because the offer was insufficient, but because he believes you don't understand him or his company." You don't comprehend the corporate spirit he has poured his life's work into. He sees you merely as a barbarian looking to devour his enterprise, whereas I can create a painting to show him that you truly understand." Victor fell silent. He leaned back in his chair, his fingers absently tapping the desk. He was deep in thought. As a top-tier businessman, he never made a losing deal. He is currently weighing the risks and rewards of this deal. The risk is, if I fail, he only loses some paint, time, and perhaps a bit of pride, but the reward is, if I succeed, he'll secure a multi-billion-dollar merger deal, and all he has to put up is a measly 1% stake in the company. This deal is a win-win no matter how you look at it. "All right," he finally said after a long pause, "I'll give you a chance." But he shifted his tone, his gaze turning sharper. "I'm not running a charity. If you fail, you'll pay the price for your empty boasts." "What's the price?" I asked. "Get out of Victor's family," he said, word by word, his voice icy and piercing. "In my family, we don't tolerate dead weight." This was the old fox's test. Win, and you'll rise to the top in one leap. Defeated, back to square one. "All right," I agreed without hesitation, because I couldn't afford to lose. Coming out of the study, Serafina was waiting for me at the door, her face tensed up. What did he say?" "He agreed," I said, "but told me to get out if I failed." Serafina's face went pale. "Isla, this is too risky. Maybe we should just call it off," she said with regret. "Once the arrow leaves the bow, there's no turning back," I said, looking at her with unwavering determination. "Madam, you wouldn't want to be trapped here for the rest of your life, would you?" Serafina looked at me, her lips parted slightly, but in the end, she remained silent. She turned and led me to her studio. In the studio, that massive canvas, blank for a decade, stood there in silence. "What do you want to paint?" she asked. I walked up to the canvas, reached out, and gently stroked the rough fabric. "What do I want to paint?" "I want to paint a light." I had no idea. "A light that can pierce through all darkness and bring hope." "Madam," I turned to look at her, "may I borrow that photo album of you and Mr. Lucian?" Serafina's body trembled slightly, but she did not refuse. She quietly placed the photo album she had cherished for years into my hands. I took the album and drew a deep breath. "Serafina, and Lucian, your unfinished dreams, the light you lost along the way, I will help you find it back. Then, I'll use it to light up the future for Summer and me." I locked myself in the studio for 3 whole days. During those 3 days, I didn't see anyone, not even Nico, who came to inspect every day without fail. He was stopped at the door by Serafina and threw a fit, yelling that I must be up to no good inside. I ignored him. My entire focus was absorbed by the old photo album and the canvas before me. I kept looking at those photos over and over, at the young Serafina and Lucian. Look at their carefree smiles under the sun, the pure passion for art in their eyes, and that unspoken between them that needs no words. They were a match made in heaven, if not for fate's cruel twist. They should have had the most wonderful life. I tried to understand Lucian, understanding why he let go back then. It wasn't cowardice, nor was it betrayal. It was a deeper kind of love, one filled with sacrifice and selflessness. He loved Serafina so much that he couldn't bear to see her suffer with him, nor let her carry the burden of his family's sins, so he chose to sever their bond, pushing her toward a man who could offer her a stable life. He believed this was the best way to protect her. How cruel, yet how noble. I began to write. I didn't paint that deep blue starry sky. What I painted were sunflowers. Vast fields of sunflowers, basking in the sun and growing wild. Just like that photo in the album of Serafina standing in the sunflower field, but the sunflowers in the painting aren't golden yellow, they blaze with a tragic yet dazzling brilliance, like something reborn from fire. I used the boldest reds and oranges, with rough, wild brushstrokes, as if pouring every ounce of life onto the canvas, and at the edge of that burning sea of flowers, where sky meets earth, I painted a single star. A tiny but astonishingly bright star. It wasn't hanging in the sky, but rather rising steadily from the horizon. It illuminated the entire sea of flowers, and lit up the whole world. That was the morning star. It is the end of night, the dawn of day. It is Lucian, and it is Serafina. It is their bygone youth, and their undying dreams. With the final stroke complete, I stepped back to gaze upon the painting before me. I named it Rebirth. 3 days later, I opened the door to the studio. Both Serafina and Nico were waiting by the door. As I stepped out, Nico was about to make a snide remark, but swallowed his words the moment he saw the painting behind me. Serafina stood there completely stunned. As she gazed at the painting, her eyes first registered shock, then dawning realization, and finally, tears of profound relief. She wept silently without a sound, tears streaming down her face, yet a genuine, long-lost smile touched the corners of her mouth. "Thank you, Isla," she said, walking over and, for the first time, initiating an embrace. "Thank you." I could feel her arms trembling slightly as she held me. I knew the knot in her heart had finally come undone. The painting was delivered to Germany by Victor in record time, along with a handwritten letter from Serafina. I have no idea what the letter said. All I know is, 3 days later, Victor came back from work in the middle of the night and, for the first time, stepped into my room. The sound of the door opening jolted me awake, and I saw him standing by my bed, looking at me with a complicated expression. "You win," he said, his voice tinged with a hint of barely noticeable exhaustion, and with barely contained excitement. "Mr. Schmidt has agreed to the acquisition." He said that from the painting. He saw our company's sincerity and soul. The weight that had been weighing on my mind finally lifted. "What about my shares?" "Tomorrow, Leo will take you to handle the paperwork," he said, staring at me as if I were some kind of freak. "Isla, I'm really curious. What on earth is going through your mind?" I just pulled up the covers and lay back down. "Mr. Victor, the rules state that no one should enter another person's room after 10 p.m. without permission." Victor's expression instantly shifted to one of pure astonishment. It was probably the first time he'd been silenced by his own rules. He shot me a deep, lingering look, said nothing, and turned to leave. The next day, I became the smallest shareholder of the GU Group. Even if it's just 1%, it's more than enough for me. The first thing I did was have Leo dig into Kevin's family background. Know your enemy and know yourself, and you can win every battle. Leo was incredibly efficient and quickly laid out a detailed report in front of me. Kevin is a mid-level manager at a state-owned enterprise of moderate size. Mildred is a full-time homemaker. They own one apartment and one car, but have little in savings. On the surface, they appear to be a perfectly ordinary middle-class family, but the last page of the document made my eyes widen in shock. Mildred had a biological daughter. In her 20s, she rebelled, ran away from home, and eloped with a rock musician. She never returned after that. The file included a photo of the daughter. She was quite beautiful, with eyes and brows somewhat resembling Mildred's, yet her demeanor was entirely different. She sported a bold, short haircut, with a defiant gaze that radiated utter disdain for the world. Why did Mildred have such a strong desire to control Summer? In Summer, she saw the shadow of her own failure of a daughter. She feared that Summer would follow in her daughter's unfortunate footsteps, so she would go to any lengths to keep Summer firmly under her thumb, to mold her into the perfect lady who would never dare to rebel. She's not raising a daughter, she's trying to make up for her own regrets and heal her psychological wounds, and Summer became the innocent victim in her quest for self-redemption. How selfish, how terrifying. Just as I was reading this with a chill running down my spine, Nico's call came through. His voice was filled with an urgency and anger I had never heard before. "Isla, something terrible happened. Your friend Summer. Her mother locked her up." My mind went blank with a buzzing sound, and the documents in my hands scattered all over the floor. "I heard from my little brother that that psycho woman from Kevin's family found the USB drive you gave Summer. She thought Summer had gone down a bad path, had a huge fight with her, then locked her in the room, wouldn't even let her leave the house, not even to go to school. She even said she'd contact child services, claiming Summer has serious issues and that she wants to return her." The word return pierced my heart like a sharp needle. Is the nightmare from my past life about to repeat itself? I absolutely won't allow this. She even contacted a fully boarding school, that prison-like hellhole. She said she wants to send Summer there to discipline her properly. All the blood in my body rushed to my head in an instant. Mildred, she's gone mad. She's pushing Summer to the brink. Isla, are you listening?" Nico's anxious voice came through the phone. "I'm here." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "Nico, I need one last favor. Speak, help me get her out. Now, immediately, right away." "How? We can't just barge in and snatch her, can we?" "No." I gazed out the window, my eyes turning icy. "We're going to invite her out." Just as I thought. I picked up my phone and dialed Leo's number. Just as I thought. "Leo, please arrange a meeting for me. I want to go as a shareholder of the Goo Group. I'll formally visit Mr. Kevin to discuss his daughter Summer's future investment plan. There was a brief pause on the other end before Leo replied respectfully, "Yes, ma'am." "Mildred, don't you think your daughter is your masterpiece? Then I'll show you exactly what this masterpiece is worth now. Don't you want to control her life? Then I'll buy her life back from you, fair and square. This time, I won't let anyone hurt my sunshine ever again." Half an hour later, 3 black Mercedes-Benz cars pulled up outside Kevin's family's apartment complex. I stepped out of the middle car. The tailored black suit was something I had Leo prepare specially for this occasion. Nico followed closely behind me. Dressed in a formal suit with an uncharacteristically solemn expression on his face, Leo trailed behind us with 4 bodyguards clad in black suits and sunglasses. The spectacle drew curious glances from neighbors throughout the residential complex. We went straight upstairs and knocked on the door of Kevin's family. Kevin was the one who opened the door. He was completely taken aback by the scene at the doorway. Who are you?" Leo stepped forward, handed over his business card, and said calmly. "Mr. Kevin, hello, we're from the Goo Group. This is our company's new shareholder, Miss Isla. Miss Isla would like to discuss your daughter Summer's future with you and your wife." The Goo Group, a shareholder. Kevin's hand trembled as he held the business card, clearly overwhelmed by the prestigious title. He stammered as he invited us inside. Mildred was sitting in the living room, looking haggard, and seemed startled when she saw us enter. "You're looking for Summer, She's not feeling well and is resting in her room." Her eyes darted away, clearly lying. I ignored her, walked straight to the sofa and sat down, scanning this so-called cozy home. Photos of Summer hung on the wall. In every one, she wore a beautiful princess dress and smiled like a mannequin. "Mr. and Mrs. Kevin, I'll get straight to the point." I placed a document on the coffee table and slid it toward them. Our Goo Group recently launched a Young Genius Development Program designed to discover and nurture talented children across various fields. We provide them with the finest educational resources and development platforms. Based on our evaluation, we believe Miss Summer shows exceptional promise in the arts. She shows exceptional talent, particularly in dance. We hope to include her in this program. Kevin and Mildred exchanged puzzled glances, clearly not understanding what I meant. "This program, what exactly does it entail?" Kevin asked cautiously. "To be specific," I said, looking at them and enunciating each word clearly, "we will cover all tuition and living expenses for Miss Summer from now until her college graduation, send her to the world's top art institutions for advanced studies and hire elite mentors for her. In return, upon completing her studies, she must work for Goo Group's entertainment subsidiary for 10 years. I paused for effect before dropping the bombshell. "Of course, to show our sincerity, after the contract is signed, we will make an upfront payment of rearing compensation to both of you, as gratitude for your years of hard work raising Summer." I placed a check on top of the documents. 5 million, 5 million. Kevin and Mildred gasped in unison, their eyes fixed on the check, their breathing growing rapid. 5 million was an astronomical sum, more than their modest family could earn in a lifetime. Silence lingered on the other end of the line. Is this real?" Mildred's voice trembled. "Absolutely," I nodded, "as long as you agree to let Summer join our program and grant us full custody." "Custody?" Mildred's face instantly darkened. "No, Summer is my daughter. I won't let you take her." She finally showed her true colors. "Madam," I said coldly, staring at her, "are you sure you see her as a daughter? And not just a possession to satisfy your need for control? What do we do? How dare you spout such nonsense?" She shrieked, as if struck where it hurt most. "Talking nonsense," I sneered, slamming another document Leo had uncovered onto the table in front of her. "Your own daughter ran away from home because of your controlling behavior and hasn't been heard from since. Are you trying to repeat the same tragedy with Summer? How could you know?" Mildred's face drained of all color as if she'd seen a ghost. "Is it not true that you locked Summer away, forced her to drop out of school, and even planned to send her to one of those so-called correctional schools?" My voice grew colder. "Your so-called, for her own good, is nothing but using love as an excuse to cause harm. You don't deserve to be called a mother." I did it all for her own good. She wouldn't listen. She's gone bad," Mildred shouted emotionally. "She just wants to learn the dance she loves, wear the clothes she likes, and laugh more genuinely. Is that what you call going astray?" I stood up, looking down at her. Mildred, you don't love her at all. You only love the puppet you've been controlling. Just then, with a loud bang, a bedroom door was slammed open from the inside. Summer rushed out. Her face was pale, her hair disheveled, and her eyes were red and swollen. Yet they burned with a fierce, fiery rage. You're absolutely right, she said, pointing at Mildred, her voice trembling with emotion. You never once asked what I wanted. All you do is push me. Push me. I am not your tool. Summer, I called out, rushing toward her as soon as I saw her emerge. Isla, she saw me, and her tears could no longer be held back, streaming down as she threw her arms around me. Don't be afraid. I'm here. I held her tightly, patting her back. I'm here to take you home. This is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Mildred watched us embracing, trembling with fury. Summer, after all I've done for you, this is how you repay me, you ungrateful wretch. Enough. Kevin, who had been silent all along, suddenly roared. He looked at his wife, who seemed to have gone mad, then glanced at the $5 million check, his face contorted with intense inner conflict. In the end, greed overpowered reason. He picked up the pen and signed his name on the document. Let her go, he said to Mildred. His voice heavy with exhaustion. Mildred stared at him in disbelief. Kevin, you, $5 million. With that kind of money, we could have everything we've ever wanted. Kevin's eyes were red as he spoke. As for our daughter, we can always have another one who'll listen to us. Mildred was completely stunned. She stared at her husband as if seeing him for the first time. I grabbed Summer's hand and walked away without another glance at that wretched couple. Nico followed us, but before leaving, he shot a glance back at the devastated Mildred and sneered. Serves you right. Stepping out of that suffocating building, the sunlight outside was just right. Summer looked up at the sky and took a deep breath, as if trying to draw all the fresh air into her lungs. Isla, she turned her head, looked at me, tear stains still on her face, yet she flashed an incredibly radiant smile. I'm free, yeah, I nodded with a smile. You're free. Back at Victor's place. Both Serafina and Victor were there. They weren't too surprised when they saw me bring Summer back. Serafina walked over and gently patted Summer's head, saying, Sweetheart, just make yourself at home from now on. Summer was pleasantly flustered and whispered, Thank you, Auntie. Victor gave me a look I couldn't quite decipher. Good job. That was all he said before heading upstairs. That evening, I settled Summer into the room next to mine. I'd already had Leo redecorate that room according to Summer's preferences. The walls are painted a bright lemon yellow, with large floor-to-ceiling windows, and the sills are filled with sunflowers. Wow, Summer exclaimed as soon as she stepped in. Isla, it's so beautiful here. It's like a little sun palace. She threw herself onto the soft big bed and happily rolled around, seeing her regain her energy. I felt genuinely happy from the bottom of my heart. Summer. I walked over and sat by her bedside. From now on, learn whatever you want to learn, wear whatever you want to wear, laugh however you want to laugh. No one can tell you what to do anymore. She nodded vigorously, her eyes sparkling. Isla, you too. From now on, we'll always be together, never apart again. Okay, we won't be apart anymore. We lay on the same bed, whispering to each other just like we used to back at the orphanage. Isla, you're amazing, Summer said. Turning to face me, you're like a heroine, saving me from those bad people. I smiled and said, I'm no heroine, I just didn't want to see you get hurt again. That Nico guy isn't so bad after all, she added. He actually looked quite handsome today. An image of Nico in a suit, looking all serious, popped into my mind, and I couldn't help but smile. No way, yeah, that bully seems to have really changed. The moonlight outside gently streamed in through the window. In this lifetime, both Summer and I have finally broken free from our respective cages. I know there's still a long road ahead of us. Victor's family still isn't a harbor filled with love. It's more like a well-resourced pit stop where we temporarily dock. As long as we're together, anywhere can be home. I looked at Summer sleeping beside me, a sweet smile still gracing her face. I leaned in gently and planted a kiss on her forehead. Good night, my little sunshine, in this lifetime. May we both thrive and walk together toward that truly bright future. Story 2, after the zombie outbreak. While others relied on hoarding supplies, I relied on a dog, a real dog, a Chinese rural dog to be precise, just me and my dog, surviving the apocalypse. Meanwhile, the so-called family members who had kicked me out seemed to have all turned into zombies. When the apocalypse erupted, I was at home washing dishes. A red rain drizzled from the sky, turning anyone it touched into a zombie. My stepmother and stepsister, trapped in the car downstairs, pleaded with my father and me to save them. Instead, my biological father pushed me out the door, instructing me to rescue them or he would lock me out to fend for myself. "Laurel, she is your sister after all," said the man, his voice firm yet hollow through the door. I took a deep breath, my mind racing to devise a way to save them. Eventually, I found an old radio in the hallway's storage closet and threw it out the window with all my might. Using the zombies' attraction to noise, I drew their attention away and successfully rescued the two of them. After making sure they were all inside, I slammed the building's main door shut. Turning around, I detected an indescribable odor in the air. I looked down at Leah. She had wet herself. I had no time to deal with her and said to my father and stepmother, "Let's take stock of our supplies for now." My father didn't mention his earlier action of pushing me out, and I couldn't be bothered to bring it up. In the apocalypse, the most important thing is to survive. 20 minutes later, I stood in the living room, eyeing the supplies laid out on the coffee table. From the kitchen, 10 kilograms of rice and 14 packets of instant noodles. My stash included 4 packs of snacks, 2 boxes of mochi, and a bottle of electrolyte drink. In the living room, there were 2 large buckets of mineral water, and 3 buckets of tap water collected before it got contaminated. My stepmother brought out a whole unopened package of pork from the master bedroom, roughly 8 small packs. Leah reluctantly produced 2 bags of cookies after a long search in her room. It was clear to anyone that she had more hidden away, but my father, always weak-willed, wouldn't confront her. My stepmother wouldn't oppose her own daughter either. And I was too disdainful to argue with fools. My phone kept buzzing relentlessly. Social media was flooded with news about the zombies. This was a global mutation, an indiscriminate rainfall. Officials announced 10 minutes ago that this was a highly contagious virus, urging residents not to go out and to find a safe place to take shelter nearby. "We are confident in controlling the spread of the virus. Please have confidence in us," the official announcement reassured us. So on the first day, when Leah was indulging in food and drink, I hesitated but ultimately did not stop her. During this time, water and electricity were still functioning. Every day, fearless reporters broadcast news of workers bravely striving to maintain these essential services. Until the 4th day, I woke up in a sweat. The air conditioning had stopped, and the faucet in the bathroom was emitting a blood-red liquid, the same color as the rainwater on the day the zombies broke out. The water and electricity systems had completely collapsed. Leah was nervously biting her fingernails in the living room, mumbling, "It's just temporary, just temporary." Unusually, my stepmother didn't comfort her but was frantically checking her phone for updates. My father remained silent as ever, like a speechless puppet. We stayed in the stuffy house all day until nightfall, and neither water nor electricity was restored. The so-called rescue was nowhere to be seen. Even Leah, slow as she was, sensed something was off and mumbled that rescue might not be coming. Late at night, when I went to use the bathroom, I heard noises from Leah's room and pressed my ear against the door to listen. I overheard Leah plotting with my stepmother to drive me away. "Keeping her here is just a waste of food. Let's get rid of her, Mom," I scoffed coldly. I was just about to barge in when I heard my father's voice. "Leah, after all, she is your sister." Leah threw a tantrum, "But we're almost out of food. Do you dare to go out and find some? The outside is full of monsters." Instead of the rebuttal I imagined from my father, there was an endless silence. My heart sank to the bottom, and I was utterly disappointed in the man called my father. The last faint attachment I had to this so-called home also vanished without a trace. I made a decision. I would leave, but not because I was driven out, but rather, I would quietly take some of their supplies with me. Leah was right about one thing: our food was running out soon. Staying here, even if not driven away, would sooner or later mean having to go out for food. Rather than letting Leah benefit from my efforts later, it's better to venture out alone now. At least the apartment building is still relatively safe. In the dead of night, after making sure they were all asleep, I came out of my room and packed some supplies from the living room into my backpack: dried mochi, instant noodles, pork jerky, and 3 500 milliliters bottles of drinking water. I couldn't carry everything else. I also needed to take other things, including my phone and a 20,000 mAh power bank. I quietly searched again, taking 2 large rolls of duct tape and a small knife. Finally, I wrapped any exposed skin with clothes, making sure there were no gaps left uncovered. I left the house, too, My destination was a room on the third floor. The homeowner, Grandma Mabel, was where I used to hide whenever I fought with Leah. Grandma Mabel would cook delicious food for me, and I would help her clean. Last year, Grandma Mabel was taken in by her grandson to live with him. Before she left, she gave me the keys to her house, asking me to come and clean it when I had the time. Even my father didn't know about this place. It came in handy now. The corridor was quiet. I had been observing from the window every day. The main door of the apartment building seemed to be closed, keeping the zombies out. No one inside had ventured out, and no one had turned, but just in case, I was fully armed and extremely cautious. For safety, I didn't turn on the flashlight, although there were no zombies. In these apocalyptic times, human nature could be unpredictable. It was 1:23, guided by the dim light of my phone. I moved step by step down the stairs, hugging the wall, in the silent hallway. Only my footsteps and breathing could be heard. Suddenly, I realized something. There was a second breathing sound. My hand clenched the knife tightly, my heart raced, adrenaline surged. I tried to steady my breathing, pretending not to notice, and continued to move slowly downward. The breathing sound closely followed behind, step by step. Just as I was about to turn the corner on the third floor, I darted into the corridor. The breathing paused for a moment, then footsteps followed. Tap, tap, the breathing sound approached me, and just as it was about to reach me, I swung the knife with all my might. I stabbed the air. An odd sensation came from my lower leg, something furry. I shone my phone towards it. I saw a pair of luminous green eyes. Little Black, I exclaimed in surprise. In the darkness, illuminated by the screen of my phone, a sleek black dog with not a single patch of other fur, a native Chinese rural dog, affectionately rubbed against my pants. Hearing me call its name, it excitedly stood up and jumped towards me. Little Black was a stray that roamed the area, and I often fed it. Little Black was very smart. One of the books fell from the shelf, revealing a hidden compartment behind it. Inside, there was an assortment of survival gear and a well-preserved map of the area. It seemed Grandma Mabel's grandson had been prepared for a crisis like this. I carefully took out the map and spread it on the floor, surveying potential routes and safe zones marked in meticulous detail. The realization that this room might hold the key to surviving the next several days washed over me with a mix of relief and newfound determination. With Little Black by my side, I felt a renewed sense of hope. I whispered to him, "Looks like we've found a treasure trove, buddy." Little Black wagged his tail and gave a soft whine. As if understanding the gravity of our find, having this unexpected resource, I adjusted my plans. I knew that with careful rationing and the aid of the survival tools and knowledge contained in this room, our chances of making it through the apocalypse had significantly improved. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the room filled with military memorabilia. I sat down, leaning against a wall, and allowed myself a moment to relax. The videos I had downloaded earlier would wait. For now, I was content in knowing that we had a fighting chance, and that Grandma Mabel's grandson's preparations might just make all the difference for me and Little Black. Little Black was excitedly rummaging under the bed when I followed his gaze and discovered a large wooden box. I carefully pulled it out and opened it to find 2 cans and a bag of compressed biscuits. Upon checking online, I was surprised to find they were military rations with a shelf life of over 5 years. Grandma Mabel had moved out just last year, so the food was still good to eat. Inside the box, there was also a small slingshot and a box of marbles. I tried it out and was unexpectedly quite accurate with it, though it wasn't perfect for precision strikes. Hitting a zombie from 5 or 6 meters away was still feasible. This was a pleasant surprise indeed. Not only had I found extra food, but I had also discovered a new weapon. I was overjoyed and gave Little Black a thumbs up. Feeling my excitement, Little Black puffed up his chest with pride. It was day 15 since the apocalypse began. Little Black and I had been staying at Grandma Mabel's house for nearly 10 days. During this time, I practiced self-defense daily to improve my ability to protect myself, and my accuracy with the slingshot had increased from the initial 5 or 6 meters to about 15 meters now. 3 days ago, the internet completely collapsed, cutting off all external sources of news. After assessing the remaining food supplies and my practice, I decided to go out and look for supplies within the next couple of days. As I pondered this, sudden noises came from the door. Someone was trying to pick the lock. Peering through the peephole, it appeared to be 2 muscular men from the second floor. Little Black's fur bristled, and he growled softly. I quickly stroked him to calm him down, signaling him to be quiet. We couldn't let them know someone was inside. My heart raced, and cold sweat covered my body as I stared at them through the peephole. The men fiddled with the lock for a while until one of them remembered something. "Hey, didn't the owner of this place move out a while ago?" The other man paused, his action stopping. "It's that old lady, right? Seems like it. Damn, bad luck. There's probably nothing to eat if no one's living here. Let's go. Forget this one and try the next." One of them spat on the ground. Relieved, they gave up on breaking in. I watched as they eventually broke into 3 other apartments on this floor, managing to gather only enough food for about 3 or 4 days. One of the apartments was right across from us. Its owner, a frail man, pleaded with them to leave him some food. The 2 men ignored him completely, threw him out, and walked away arrogantly. In this post-apocalyptic world, the law of the survival of the fittest had taken over once again. This building was no longer safe. With more people running out of food, more would take risks. This wasn't going to be the last of such incidents. I needed to find a new place to stay. Tomorrow, I would head to a less populated area. I tried to recall the addresses of nearby stores and planned my route for the next day. There was a high school just a street away, with a large campus. It was currently summer vacation, so there were hardly any people around. Just a few security guards and some staff who stayed at the school. It was a low-risk area. The school had a snack bar, a cafeteria, and a storeroom. It would be sufficient for a while. The next morning, I repeated my previous method, wrapping my body with tape for protection, opting to forego wrapping clothes for ease of movement. I wanted to wrap Little Black with some tape too, but he was very resistant, so I had to give up on that idea. After ensuring everything was as prepared as I could make it, I packed up the remaining supplies. I took a deep breath and said to Little Black, "Let's go." Little Black responded with a howl. The 3rd-floor corridor was clear of zombies, and Little Black and I quickly made our way through. Descending the stairs seemed relatively safe, perhaps because the zombies, with their stiff bodies, couldn't manage climbing stairs. It wasn't until we reached the ground floor entrance that we encountered a few zombies in the hallway. I hid around the corner of the staircase on the 1st floor and aimed my slingshot through the corridor window at an electric scooter outside. The steel ball shot out, triggering a loud alarm from the scooter. 2 zombies slowly made their way towards the main door. The remaining one aimlessly wandered around like a headless fly. A sense of dread filled me. It seemed unavoidable to confront them head-on. As I hesitated, Little Black suddenly dashed out like an arrow, passing by the zombies. It instantly drew their attention with its living scent, and they followed after Little Black. Little Black turned back and barked at me. I understood its message: hurry. Without time to be sentimental, driven by instinct, I ran quickly in the opposite direction from Little Black. Most of the zombies outside were distracted by Little Black. Not noticing me, I sprinted to the security office of the residential complex. The office was in disarray, with bloodstains on the glass windows. I stared intently back the way I had come, hoping to see that familiar black figure that had been with me for many days. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, my eyes ached from straining. No, I couldn't just wait. Even if Little Black could make it back, it couldn't just rely on walking to escape. I couldn't keep letting it take risks for me. I decided to head to the parking shed of the complex. There were a few zombies scattered around the parking shed. Once again, I pulled out my slingshot and aimed at an electric bike farthest from me. After making sure the zombies were distracted, I quickly searched the shed. Please, let there be someone who forgot to pull out their keys. I frantically searched the shed, but to no avail. None of the vehicles were left with the keys in. Despair grew within me, but suddenly, I sensed something and turned sharply. A few meters away on the tree-lined path outside the electric bike shed, a dark SUV had its rear passenger door half open. The driver's side window was shattered, revealing a grotesque face. The owner of the face, a zombie stuck in the car, stared blankly at me, half of its body leaning out, emitting meaningless sounds. This was a zombie trapped in the car. My heart raced. This vehicle must have been attacked while someone in the back was trying to get out. As they attempted to drive away, the mutated passenger in the back must have bitten the driver. This meant the keys were still in the ignition, untouched. If I could just deal with this zombie, Little Black and I would have a way out. I clenched the homemade spear in my hand, took a deep breath, and slowly approached the trapped zombie. 5 meters, 3 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter. Without hesitation, I thrust the spear into its eye. Zombies don't feel pain. It stared at me with its dark eyes. Struggling briefly, still trying to escape from the window that confined it. I pulled out the spear and stabbed again, and after several attempts, the zombie finally met what humans would call death, losing all signs of life. I struggled to drag it out of the window and tossed it aside. After making sure there were no other zombies in the car, I opened the door and began searching for the keys. In the cramped space of the car, blood and flesh were everywhere, suppressing my disgust. I searched around the seat. Finally, in the gap of the seat, I found the keys. I quickly shut the door, ignoring the fact that I had failed the driving test twice, and with determination, I stepped on the accelerator. I drove towards the direction of the residential buildings. Along the way, there were noticeably fewer zombies, likely all drawn away by Little Black. From a distance, I saw a group of about 20 zombies wildly thrashing about. Little Black somehow managed to climb onto the second-floor awning and began howling at the group of zombies. I floored the accelerator, aimed straight for the zombies, and crashed into them fiercely. Several zombies were flung into the air, and many more were knocked down and crushed under the wheels. I yelled to Little Black, "Come down, let's get out of here." With a howl, Little Black leaped down from the awning and scrambled into the back seat of the car. I quickly turned the car around and sped off. Having this car made our escape much smoother. For the time being, the zombies couldn't catch up with us. Little Black whimpered and climbed into the passenger seat. Seeing that it wasn't hurt, I finally felt a weight lift from my heart, leaving the horde of zombies far behind. I feigned anger. "Don't ever do that again, or you won't get your canned food tonight." Little Black looked utterly dejected, nuzzling my arm with its head. Trying to appease me, I ignored it and focused on driving to the experimental middle school. Soon, the gates of the school were in sight, but dozens of relentless zombies continued to pursue us from behind. "Hold tight, Little Black." I watched the zombies clawing in the rearview mirror, then suddenly reversed at full speed, smashing into them. The group of zombies tumbled to the ground in disarray. For good measure, I sounded the horn of an electric car nearby to draw their attention. Then I stepped on the gas, breaking through the school's gate. Relying on memories from years ago, I found the school's supermarket. The school was deserted, eerily quiet, but contrary to my expectations, the supermarket door was ajar and the inside was a mess, clearly already scavenged by others. I gripped the homemade spear in my hand and cautiously, along with Little Black, got out of the car. I asked Little Black to keep watch at the door while I went in alone. The shelves for instant food were completely plundered. After much effort, I managed to find 2 boxes of self-heating rice meals that had fallen to the bottom shelf. The snack area was in slightly better shape. There were still some chips left on the shelves. I frantically stuffed supplies into my backpack until it was full. Seeing a few large boxes in the living area, I hurriedly dragged them over and continued packing. Chips, cookies, bread, pure water, mineral water, beverages. I grabbed whatever I saw, leaving nothing behind. Eventually, I filled 1 backpack and 3 storage boxes with food, and even snagged a box of household supplies like towels and tissues. It would be hard to justify not taking more when I had the chance. I loaded these boxes into the car, looking at the vehicle packed to the brim with satisfaction. With a grand gesture, I turned to Little Black and declared proudly, "Look, this is the empire I've conquered for you." Little Black cooperated wonderfully, its tail wagging vigorously. Without further delay, I drove off with Little Black to our next destination. Staying in the supermarket was definitely not an option. Anyone would know there are supplies there, making it an obvious target for looting. We needed to find a safer place. My mind raced, thinking of where in the school would be suitable for a concealed and secure residence. Then it hit me. To the south of Experimental Middle School was a block of buildings slated for demolition. They were previously occupied by the teaching staff, who had since moved north. Surely, it would be deserted. I drove in the direction I remembered, soon spotting the dilapidated buildings. I chose the nearest one and parked the car. The house had an old-fashioned single-story structure with a small garden. I initially wanted to use a stick I took from the supermarket to break open the door, but eventually I gave up. After all, I really didn't have the knack for breaking in. Given that the house was to be our future home, breaking in would make it less inhabitable. I circled around the building and eventually broke a window next to the back door to get inside and unlock the door. Surprisingly, the house wasn't very dirty. I moved the supplies inside without delay. Little Black sniffed excitedly around the place. After a short break, I went upstairs to inspect each room. There were 4 rooms upstairs. 3 had their doors open, but one was firmly shut. Just as I was about to open it, Little Black ran up and started tugging at the hem of my clothes, trying to pull me downstairs. I didn't understand what he meant and looked at him, puzzled. Unable to persuade me, Little Black dragged me into one of the open rooms instead. The room was sparse, mostly filled with old furniture. Suddenly, I noticed something out of place. A backpack that was clearly new and stuffed with books. I walked over and pulled out one of the books to see what it was. The cover boldly declared, 100 Essential Math Problems for Strengthening Fundamentals in Senior Year. Something flickered in my mind, but before I could grasp it, a creaking noise came from the tightly shut door. The old wooden door, already frail, was on the verge of splitting open under the strain. Little Black and I hurried outside, but we were a step too late, as the door collapsed with a bang. A dozen youthful zombies burst out of the room, the curse of summer school lessons. Fortunately, Little Black and I managed to avoid the horde of zombies. Young zombies, like their living counterparts, yearn for freedom. These high school zombies, overwhelmed by academic pressure, completely ignored us as they stumbled down the stairs and headed toward the symbol of freedom, the schoolyard. Little Black and I watched in stunned silence from a closet as they faded into the distance. An old, bald teacher wandered aimlessly around the house, clearly lacking the vigor of the younger zombies. Recalling the math practice book from the backpack, I took a deep breath and dealt with this private summer tutor with a sense of relief. After this close call, Little Black and I thoroughly checked all 4 floors, once sure of our safety. I locked the door and blocked the window I had broken with discarded furniture. Finally, we had a place to settle. To celebrate, I opened the remaining half-can of braised pork military rations. Little Black and I joyfully ate it with compressed biscuits. Later that night, as I drifted between sleep and wakefulness, I heard heavy breathing beside me. My phone was dead, and the flashlight I'd brought was downstairs in a box. Using the dim moonlight, I tried to locate the source of the noise. Groping in the dark, I couldn't find Little Black. Suddenly, I felt my foot step on something. It was Little Black, burning up and breathing heavily, struggling to breathe. Carefully feeling its body, I found a small wound on its hind leg that I hadn't noticed during the day. By now, the wound had become infected, causing Little Black to fall unconscious. I was at a loss. Suddenly, Little Black struggled violently. Under the moonlight, its eyes were no longer the usual luminescent green but a dark, zombified black. Little Black just stared at me, shaking uncontrollably as if in immense pain. We stayed like that, frozen, and just when I thought Little Black might leap at me, it turned its head sharply. With slow but firm steps, it walked away, unable to leave it alone. I followed quietly, then I heard a thud. Little Black had tumbled down the stairs and was unconscious again. As I watched Little Black convulsing on the ground, I was torn apart inside. My reason told me that I should end its life now, otherwise, once it turned into a zombie, I would have no way out. But having spent so many days together, and considering Little Black was injured trying to save me, how could I bear to kill it? Moreover, Little Black was still conscious. What if it could control itself? Just what if? In that moment, I felt like a desperate gambler betting everything on a very slim chance. But I have no regrets. Without Little Black, I would probably have already died on the streets. I'm not foolish. If Little Black really mutated and lost its self-awareness, I would kill it without hesitation. It's not the final moment yet. There's still a chance for things to turn around. I carefully moved downstairs and dragged Little Black back up. I locked it in a small room on the 3rd floor. This was the only door in the building, apart from the entrance, that was still relatively sturdy. After leaving enough food for Little Black for several days, I locked and barricaded the door. The first day, the room was eerily quiet. Little Black didn't make any sound. The second day, I killed a wandering zombie outside the main door, and my machete got damaged beyond use. Still, Little Black showed no reaction. On the 3rd day, I moved a chair and sat by the door, hoping for a miracle. But Little Black started making terrifying noises inside, scratching the door incessantly, filling the building with a chilling sound of friction. It wasn't until the morning of the 4th day that the room returned to its initial silence. With no sounds coming through, my heart sank further. I knew the worst might have happened. Little Black might have truly turned into a mindless zombie. I decided that the next morning, I would end its suffering. But that night, I heard a familiar whimpering sound from the room. Cautiously, I opened the door, and Little Black suddenly pounced on me. Instinctively, I almost stabbed it with the knife in my hand but stopped abruptly. Little Black's eyes were the familiar dark brown, Little Black had not turned into a zombie. I dropped the knife and hugged it tightly, crying tears of joy. Day 63 of the apocalypse outbreak. After its narrow escape from death, Little Black and I officially settled down in the school. Little Black became increasingly intelligent. At times, it seemed almost human, except it couldn't talk, since that injury. Little Black was no longer attacked by zombies and could move around freely. Once, while we were out gathering supplies, the zombies didn't react to me either, likely thanks to Little Black. The number of survivors in the vicinity was dwindling, and the zombies were increasing. The school's supermarket had shown no signs of other people since last month. I didn't know if Little Black and I could continue to survive safely. Today, as we nearly emptied the school's supermarket, Little Black and I were worried about our future food sources. The available resources were becoming scarcer, and even though we could evade the zombies, we lacked a sustainable food supply. Suddenly, a buzzing sound came from above the school. It was a drone. Little Black and I hid and quietly observed as the drone hovered over the school for a while. Then it broadcasted a message. Dear citizens, with a heavy heart, we greet you. It has been 2 months since the zombie outbreak in S City, which was once in disarray. We have now established a survivor base inside the suburban sports stadium, managed by the authorities. Every day at 3 p.m., we will dispatch rescue vehicles to fixed locations to wait for everyone. Please gauge your ability to travel safely. The specific vehicle stops will now be announced. We are waiting for you at the base. The drone looped the message 5 or 6 times before it left. Little Black and I exchanged glances, both entertaining the idea of heading to the survivors' base. The nearest stop was at the intersection on the road by the experimental high school. Little Black and I decided to hide on the upper floors of a corner shop to first verify the authenticity of the drone's message. Around 2 p.m., a loud cracking noise suddenly came from the next street. An SUV came barreling down, followed by a long string of zombies clamoring for food. Little Black let out a speechless howl and I fell silent too. At this rate, even before the rescue vehicle arrives, zombies from hundreds of miles around would have gathered. Why bother running anymore? Might as well die together. Just as the SUV was about to cross the intersection and reach our street, I clearly saw a massive rock fall from the sky, striking precisely the front windshield of the driver's side. The car crashed into a roadblock, emitting billowing black smoke. I heard someone shouting, "Damn idiot, making such a big fuss, now no one can leave." Ah, great minds think alike. It seems there were others hiding and observing the situation too. Little Black and I tightened the curtains, concealing ourselves even better. Gradually, over half an hour, about 7 or 8 people quietly slipped by without causing much commotion. Most were in groups of 2 or 3, and there were some going solo. All of them scattered and hid, waiting for the official vehicle to arrive. At 3 p.m. sharp, the official rescue vehicle arrived on time, accompanied by 5 or 6 well-equipped soldiers with guns. It seems the drone's message was true. Everyone came out, ready to board, and Little Black and I also went downstairs to leave. Just as I was stepping out the door, I heard a familiar and sharp cry. Leah was running towards us, shouting, "Police officer, save me!" In that instant, 4 words flashed through my mind. Damn idiot. It was too late to go back. Little Black and I had no choice but to start running, but it was a step too late. Leah had already run over, bringing a large group of zombies with her. She ran faster than me and quickly caught up. Seeing it was me, her expression twisted even more, her hair disheveled, looking like a lunatic escaped from an asylum. "Laurel, you bitch." I had no time to deal with her. Unable to expose Little Black's identity and abilities in front of so many people unless absolutely necessary, so I chose to keep running with her. The zombies were just a meter away from us, and the rescue point was still nearly 100 meters away. The soldiers' gunfire couldn't reach us here, making me regret choosing to observe from this location. Suddenly, I tripped over something, stumbled, and almost fell. Leah turned back and flashed me a huge smile. "Farewell, dear sister." The zombies immediately surrounded me, then Leah's expression turned to one of disbelief. The zombies ignored me and continued charging straight at her. I didn't bother with her anymore and sped with Little Black towards the rescue vehicle. After boarding, Little Black and I couldn't stop panting. Someone on the vehicle whispered, "It's strange, people can barely survive, and yet they bring a dog." I quickly hugged Little Black and apologized with a smile. "Sorry, brother. This dog won't take up a seat, can help us find food, and won't hold us back." The man snorted and said no more. At that moment, Leah also ran up, collapsing on the ground, her eyes fixed on me. I pretended to rest with my eyes closed, ignoring her further. The car slowly started up, taking us towards the survivor base. Along the way, Leah's gaze followed me like a cold, venomous snake. Today marks the 76th day since the apocalypse outbreak. Little Black and I have been at the survivor base for more than 10 days now. A new order has indeed been established here, with a stable but limited supply of basic food distributed based on one's work contributions. The survivor base does not tolerate idleness. To earn food, one must work to their capacity. Little Black and I joined the cleaning squad, mainly tasked with clearing the remaining zombies in the nearby areas every day. Life is relatively decent. Little Black often manages to scrounge up some food from hidden corners, and the team members have grown quite fond of him. After Leah arrived at the base, she made a huge fuss, insisting that I was a zombie. Though the people around looked at her as if she were a fool, she still caused quite a stir. The base's official in charge came over. After looking me over, he said to someone beside him, "Take her away." He was referring to Leah. Leah, relentless, protested, "She's a zombie." I saw it with my own eyes. The zombies don't even touch her. As more and more survivors gathered around, the official coolly ordered, "Drag her away." He then turned his gaze back to me. "She says zombies don't touch you. What's that about?" I was not the least bit nervous. "She's mistaken." Everyone else in the car can testify that the zombies were indeed chasing us, from a distance of nearly 100 meters, and with objects obstructing the view. The people in the car couldn't really see clearly. Plus, how could a zombie move as agilely as I do? I weakly added. The official seemed about to say more when a very familiar voice suddenly rang out. "Laurel." It was Grandma Mabel. I was overjoyed. It turned out that Grandma Mabel had returned earlier in the year, and the official was her grandson. With Grandma Mabel's help, the official stopped giving us a hard time, remembering that I had taken his canned food and slingshot. I quickly apologized and returned them to him. Seeing the slingshot, the official's face darkened, while Grandma Mabel burst out laughing beside him. Realizing I might have inadvertently made things worse, I quickly found an excuse to slip away. Leah's life in the base was uncomfortable. She dared not go out to clean the streets and scorned the tasks of washing and cooking. She lived day by day on the minimal subsidies, looking quite wretched whenever I bumped into her in the base. She would look at me with resentful eyes. I appeared indifferent, but my wariness of her grew by the day. Another day of cleaning duty, and our team was responsible for the eastern area. It was said to be a storage-style supermarket with many valuable items. Little Black was borrowed by the officials to search for supplies, and in return, they offered to pay me and Little Black an extra 30%. Little Black and I didn't really want to separate, but we couldn't refuse the official request. I just reminded Little Black to take good care of himself. His brown-black eyes were full of reluctance, which made our teammates joke, "Come on, it's not a life-or-death farewell, why so sentimental?" The cleaning area had been covered by military firepower in advance, so it wasn't very dangerous, with only a few zombies that slipped through the net, but they were easy to handle. Eventually, we collected 3 large trucks of supplies and were ready to head back fully loaded when Leah suddenly appeared from nowhere and drove off with one of the trucks. My teammates and I tried to stop her by driving after her, but she headed west, straight into areas the military hadn't explored yet. My teammate and I exchanged a glance and simply turned around. Good words can't persuade a determined fool. On the way back, because of the commotion we caused, a few more zombies were attracted. My teammates and I, without firearms, had to engage in close combat to deal with them, finally managing to return to the base on time. At night, Little Black came back too. Just as I was about to go and pick him up, I felt dizzy, my body weakened, and I passed out. Today marks the 104th day of the apocalypse. A new vaccine has been developed, and people no longer have to fear turning into zombies. That day, I had a small cut on my hand, somehow splashed with zombie blood. I fell into a coma because of it. It is said that Little Black and the officials revealed his identity and volunteered his blood for their research. The condition was that they save me. At that time, the vaccine being developed by the officials was missing a crucial final step, and Little Black's appearance provided the perfect bridge. The vaccine was successfully developed, and I became one of the first individuals to test it, and I survived. The vaccine is about to be distributed, and the apocalypse will soon end. Little Black and I sat on the rooftop of a temporary hospital, watching the fiery red sunset on the horizon. Fortunately, we both survived. Wait, suddenly, I remembered something and looked at Little Black in shock. How did you communicate with them? Little Black looked at me with a gaze that was both tender and proud, stretched out his paw, and slowly wrote a few large characters on the ground. I've learned to write long ago.